that we have enough time for questions at the end. So my name is Jen Peedy. I am the Vice President of Customer Advocacy for PeoplePath. We are excited to bring this webinar to you today. I'm joined by Stephan who is the co-founder and CEO of PeoplePath. Stefan, if you want to say a few words.
Hello. Yes, great to see everyone this morning, and thanks for hosting us, Jen, today.
Yeah, of course. I'm excited to chat through building a business case. We get these questions quite often, so looking forward to the next 30 minutes. But before we jump into any questions, I want to just give a brief overview for those of you who are maybe not too familiar with PeoplePath. PeoplePath is a software as a service. We are the world's leading corporate alumni program. We work with some of the best clients in the industry, and I'm a little biased about that, but I used to be one myself, so I can say that and feel good about it. I was a alumni program manager before joining PeoplePath, so I've been in this world for about 10 years. PeoplePath focuses on lifelong relationships, and we believe that they are the foundation for mutual success. So the thing I love about working at this company is that they're not just clients or customers. We really do partner with our programs, and we try to get the best that we can out of them. So it's really wonderful working with everyone that we get to work with. PeoplePath is a small but mighty team. We are based in both North America and in Europe. So we have offices kind of everywhere. I'm based in San Diego, which I try not to say in the middle of winter, but it is raining today. So for those joining from the East Coast where it's cold, don't feel too bad about that. Um, but we have clients all over the world. We have 20 years, 25 years of experience as a company, and combined, it's hundreds of years of experience, it feels like. And so we're just very excited to bring our knowledge to you guys as you're building your programs. One thing I would like to highlight before we jump in is that we do have other events and resources available. So upcoming next week, actually, we have a webinar called Designing Alumni Surveys that Drive Real Insights. And so this QR code and link when we send around the slides will enable you to join if you'd like to. Free webinar. It's hosted by myself and our research partner, Dr. Rebecca Pollock, who works at the University of British Columbia's Sauder School of Business. She'll be walking us through how to design a survey that you can get the most out of, how to kind of adjust questions, what data looks like. It'll be a really interactive and educational and have something to take away from type of webinar. So we do encourage you to sign up if you haven't already. And then we are doing our 2026 benchmarking survey. So this is the premier academic report that comes out every year. And so we are asking any and all companies to have take some moments and fill out the survey. And then we'll produce our report and publish that later in the year. And so if you haven't taken already, even if you have a small program or thinking about a program, we want any and all answers. So we would appreciate if you could take a second to go through the survey. And so we have more events coming up in the second half of the year, but you'll hear more about that later. And so one of the things I do want to dive into is today, the business case event. So we started this series because we were getting a lot of questions about just how do you make the case, right? How do you convince stakeholders? How do you get buy-in? What do you do? Where do you look? And so we thought we could put this together as a useful guide for anyone thinking about creating a program or revitalizing a program. And so we did it in three parts. So this first part today is about how we demonstrate strategic opportunity. If you haven't downloaded the corresponding guide, this QR code will bring you there. Otherwise, we have two more parts coming up. The next part will be utilizing the power of technology. So really thinking about how a platform can help you, what ins and outs you can think through, and what you'll need as you think through building a business case and launching a program. And then the third part will be maximizing ROI, program costs, and creating an action plan. So really taking it to that last step and thinking about this whole thing as one big picture to provide a really great case for an alumni program. The next part will be out next week. So as you get the recording for this and the slides, you'll also get the second part of our series, and we'll set up another webinar. So with that, what are we talking about today? So we're focusing on the goals that are also in the guide that we created, but we want to showcase how former employee relationships are mutually beneficial. Who gets what out of what, and why do we do this? How do we redefine alumni as strategic? So it's wonderful to extend that employee life cycle, but how do we make them think big picture that they're contributing to the overall company's goals? And then how do we highlight the growing strategic importance of alumni networks? So how are they growing and where do they go? So with that, I'd like to kind of turn it over and ask Stefan some questions here and get his opinions on how we do these things. But there really has never been a better time to create an alumni program, as they've really continued to grow in the last few years. Our benchmarking report that I referenced mentions that 48% of our programs, or of programs in general, are less than 3 years old. And what that means is that more programs have started in the last few years. But the interesting thing is that our data shows that number is about the same for the last few years before that, meaning they've continued to grow year over year. That number has been consistent, and so we're excited to see more programs out in the world today. But what does an organization risk by not by waiting to start one?
Yeah, a lot is the short answer, Jen. But before I give a more serious and longer answer, let me first say thank you for everything that you do, not just setting up this webinar, the webinar mini series, but also talking with our clients about alumni engagement, bringing all your knowledge into the space and supporting us. It's really amazing. So I'm excited about this conversation and the series overall. And yes, it's great to see that momentum, as you mentioned. Lots of programs are being set up. Um, as I look in the list of our participants today, there's a few names that I've known for probably 10 years or so. And so if you've asked me 10 years ago, I would probably have predicted an even stronger increase in the number of programs. So there's definitely a lot of adoption, but I would have predicted even more. And it is interesting to see. I like to see the glass half full. So focus on the where the momentum builds. But it is broadly speaking, if you look at the risk, like what do you risk if you don't invest in alumni program, is essentially you ignore what could be the most underutilized asset that a company has. And underutilized meaning, well, the alums are there, whether you like it or not, and they've worked in your organization. So you might as well acknowledge the fact and be proactive about it. But as we get into and peel back the onion of the value that alums bring, let's do a thought experiment and some back of the envelope calculations. So everyone, if you have, take out your pen and a little notebook, and let's figure out the value of the alums, the value of your leavers as they leave the organization. So this is a quick math example, and you adopt it to your organization. In this example, we're looking at a company with 10,000 employees, 20% fluctuation. So 20% of the employees leave the organization every year. That means they have 2,000 leavers every year. Let's assume that an average salary, let's say all personnel costs, salary, benefits, other costs is 100,000. And now let's do the math. So 20% fluctuation means on the flip side, people stay for an average of 5 years. So you have 500,000 as a multiplier and 2,000 employees leaving the firm with a multiplier of 500,000, it's $1 billion. So an organization with 10,000 employees translates into people that leave the organization that have earned, the company has spent $1 billion on it. Now that's the rear view mirror, and we'll spend the rest of this time talking about what you can do building on it. But I still think that if you look at the value created by leavers, it does set the stage for how much is involved, because the 1 billion represents value created by these employees over a 5-year period, and it signifies that the asset has a lot of value. So it's interesting to look at.
It's very interesting. I love formulas I can plug things into. So this is really interesting. There is a lot of potential here. And so with that in mind, why does an organization typically start a program?
There's a whole host of reasons, but it typically involves someone in the leadership, the CEO, CMO, CHRO, making this a priority. Why are they making it a priority today and not 3 years ago or 10 years ago? That's as the reasons can be as varied as life is, but frequently what you find is like new leadership. So there's a new CEO that used to have an alumni program at the firm they were working at, or there's a benchmarking exercise and the firm's looking at, okay, what are we doing? What are other firms doing? And then you realize, oh, there is a gap. There's a lot of our peers are doing alumni networks. So there's something to look at. There may also be like a business need. So this may come out of the desire to grow the rehire and the boomerang. And so, 74% of employees struggle to find skilled candidates, not for all jobs, but for some jobs. And alums are a great resource to tap into for rehiring. We'll talk about it more. Business development, similar stats. Some clients have 10,000 plus C-level alums. Those are larger firms, but it scales to every organization size. So it may also be that it's a benchmarking exercise and you identify there's a lot of value there.
Yeah, and it can be for all those things, talent, business, brand even. There's just a lot of untapped utilization, right? So there are internal changes that make the case, the culture change, new leadership. There's market factors, having alumni out in the world already in purchasing power positions. They really do help make the case. Once you get that buy-in and we start to think about the more practical parts of creating a program, things like budget and staff, there might be some internal competition for resources. How do you make the case? So do programs have to go all in to start their program, or is there another way maybe they could kind of baby step into it?
Yeah, I'm a fan of, crawl, walk, run. If you start running, you might fall a lot. And I think most programs have started somewhat nimble, somewhat smallish, and then grown over time, even the biggest alumni programs out there. And if you look at the benchmarking, and thanks for plugging again the report, it's so useful to see the data. And this is, from last year's report, which shows that 17% of alumni programs have less than one FTE, less than one full-time equivalent. So it's less than one person working on it all the time. It may be a split role. And that's the 17% is typically programs that are starting up. So it's someone, maybe an employer branding, maybe they're on the event management team. It depends where the initiative is housed, if it's a go-to-market function or if it's an HR function where that person sits. But it's frequently programs start small and then they build over time. And so as you prove the value of the program, as you bring in those results, you get positive feedback, you get more resources, and you see programs, expanding, alumni managers becoming alumni directors, becoming vice presidents, getting additional staff, and rolling out the program as it builds and proves its value.
Yeah, we do see that even with budget, you might start out with $0 to start, which is completely fine. You can do a lot with nothing, to be honest. Already leveraging what the firm has. There are already events and webinars and things you can invite alumni to. And as you show that alumni are interested and a part of it, that budget can grow over time as well. So yeah, definitely start simple and see where it can go and try to scale. That's the way to look at it. That's
Exactly.
what we've seen in all of our data too, right? So it's great to think about these steps and that you can kind of think about this maybe as a multi-year plan. So instead of just launching something and seeing where it goes, what do you kind of want to get out of it year one, two, and three? But once you have the bones and that plan, it's good to think about creating the story for executives, right? So how do they really buy into this more so? How do you frame former employees as strategic assets when you're speaking to stakeholders? What's the proof that really helps make that case?
Yeah. And I think this is really the core of what this is about is kind of what is the strategic value to the organization? How do you quantify it? And what are the important buckets? Well, I'd say the first thing is to understand every company has some sort of baseline engagement with their alums. Again, whether you like it or not, your alums are out there, they're engaging, they're in your marketplace, and you're probably already rehiring some of them, even if you're not doing anything at all. So there's a baseline. And the question is, what can you do beyond that baseline? How much can you improve what you do with your alums beyond what you're already doing today? And the areas you focus on will depend on kind of where is the impetus, who drives this organization. So if it's a CEO, the CEO might look at the whole host of things. So hiring, rehiring, boomerang, referrals, the impact on the brand ambassadorship, and business development. But if you have a head of talent acquisition that has the struggle to find people, they may be all about boomerangs and rehiring. So that may, who's driving the initiative and who sees the value, that may change how you build the business case. But overall, you look at talent acquisition goals. In our benchmarking, we see respondents saying about 8% rehire rate. That seems to be an industry average. We have a client that does 25%, which is an outstanding achievement and built on years of running a very effective alumni program. But you will want to show incremental progress about the baseline, above and beyond the baseline you already have today. And so can we add 2 or 3% higher rehire rate with the program over a 2 to 3 year time horizon to drive value? Similar with business development, you're probably already engaging with your alums, depending on the industry. We'll talk about that a bit more, but depending on where you're at, you have a baseline of business. What I typically like to do, this is a situation, and this is a crucial conversation with business leadership. And some might be like skeptics, can we really achieve these numbers? Other firms can. Everybody knows the McKinsey's alumni program, and they're notorious for doing a ton of business with their alums, but we're not McKinsey. So how do you prove that? And it's hard. I'm a former Bain alum, and they have probably one of the best alumni programs out there. And again, no bias. But I learned a lot while I was a consultant there. And one of the things that I've learned was if something's hard to prove, you sometimes can turn the question around. So instead of arguing, okay, we will get 2 or 3% more rehires, or we will get this more business, just ask the question, what do you have to believe for this initiative to be of value, to create value? And then you have that threshold. So if you know that an average engagement with a major client is worth X, so ask leadership, do you believe that by systematically engaging with all of our alums, and you know the numbers, how many there are, that we can win one additional major assignment over a 3 year time span? That typically pays for the program. And that is a much easier question to answer than where do you throw the dot and say, this is our goal for in 2 years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something they can understand. And one seems so easy and attainable, right? And that's usually it's already happening. So you just want to formalize the program around to make it happen more. So that's really, yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. And these are some really great numbers, and they grow over time, which is also amazing as we get better with tracking and things. But how does the strategic opportunity for an alumni program differ across the industries? You kind of mentioned McKinsey, but professional services, technology, law firms, financial services. What does that look like?
Yeah. It's really interesting because alums can be really diverse in depending on the industry that you're in. The role can be really different. So in professional services, you really have the perfect storm of talent acquisition, brand ambassadorship, and business development. So really all factors come into play. In some industries, it's much more the brand ambassadorship and the rehiring angle that is important. Because clients aren't as much, on the buying side of large projects or products. That said, they typically stick around in the industry. So we, work for a number of years. We have the privilege of hosting the SAP Alumni Network, and they're happy to share that 80% of their alums are staying in the company ecosystem. So there's somewhere as a client, as an implementation partner. And so it's super important to stay engaged there as well. So, you look at this mix and it makes sense in your industry context, and you focus on 1 or 2 or 3 of these dimensions to build your case. But Jenn, let me turn this around to you, because I know you've done a lot of research and you had a particular interest in the large organizations, the Fortune 500. So what did you find in terms of how common it is for them to have an alumni program?
Yeah, it's funny because you think it would be more common than it is. So only 15% of the Fortune 500 companies have a corporate alumni program, like an officially organizationally sponsored program. And what I thought was more interesting was that 67% of those companies have unofficial groups, LinkedIn groups that alumni themselves have organized. And so it shows that alumni are organizing anyway, right? So you want to make sure that you capitalize on that and start to build something officially for them that both we talked about these mutual beneficial things, right? Where the company can benefit as well as the alumni can benefit. And usually when the company gets involved, there's more resources and there's more thought around what the program can do. And it can extend beyond what we've talked about with these goals. It can really be about professional development and helping the alumni get to where they need to be. And so by having that out there, these 67% compared to the 15 just shows that there are people
Yeah.
wanting.
Yeah, it's mind blowing. It's kind of this thought that pretending your lumps don't exist doesn't make them go away. It's kind of like little children. I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old. They're just learning that if they do this, it doesn't mean that you can't see them. They just don't see you. So it's similar with alums, isn't it? So they're out there. And we've got some more interesting stats around how alums are staying engaged with the firm, even if you don't. So maybe share some of that.
Yeah, of course. We did a case study with SAP that you mentioned that before, where
Yeah.
they found that alumni are talking about the company 7 to 8 times a year on average. And this could be about anything. Could be about their experience working for the company, can be about being a part of the alumni program, can be about being a client even, but they're doing it anyway, right? They're out there, they're interviewing for jobs, they're working with clients and companies and doing their own thing. So they're constantly mentioning the brand, and you want that to be positive. And so the more you do with the alumni program and offboarding, the more positive, the more sentiment you get
Yeah.
out of this. And so it's just kind of a no-brainer that if they're doing it anyway, they're organizing anyway, and they're mentioning you a whole bunch every year, why wouldn't you create a program, right?
Yeah, yeah. I had left Bain, I think a couple of weeks, and I had two conversations in that time. People, kind of prior classmates. It was like, I'm thinking about moving to Bain. Should I? Shouldn't I? What's the culture like? What is it really like to work there? Now you're leaving, tell me honestly. So it's and on the product side as well. I know with the SAP case study, it's actually 2 times 8, right? They're recommending SAP as a place to work and SAP as a product and the product suite 8 times per year and separately. So it's 16 recommendations overall, which is a huge number.
Yeah, absolutely. We've kind of talked about how companies can benefit and all of that fun stuff, but not really about alumni themselves. We're getting into it now a little bit. So, will alumni want to participate? What motivates them to stay connected?
Yeah. Well, it's an innocent question asked, and it is probably a 2-hour workshop to go through and go to the details of it. But on the high level, alums have a varying set of motivation to stay connected with the former employer and the alumni network, and it changes over time. So some may be pragmatic, some may be mission driven. They really like what the organization is all about. Some just like to stay connected. They like the social aspect, keeping in touch with their former colleagues. Some are really into the innovation. They want to understand what are the new products, what are we launching, and some are career focused. So they understand that there may be a rehire opportunity in the future. They might want to come back in the leadership position, and this changes over time. This isn't static. Everybody's evolving. So if somebody's left a week ago, they're probably in the honeymoon of just being onboarding a new organization. But talk to them 6 months, 12 months down the road. The peak is about 12 months after, where people kind of return. So this does change over time. And as you build out your program, and we have other resources around this, make sure that you focus on all those different drivers and try to build out value for each of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of these exist in some capacity in every program, just the amount differs, right? So whether they're career or social
Exactly.
focused, biggest change. So yeah, we've talked a lot so far, and I want to take a moment to say if there are any questions, please do drop them in the chat. We have a couple minutes left, and so we'll get to them closer to the end here. But just a couple more here while we're finishing up this conversation. We really have talked about, why we'd start a program, how internal and external factors, kind of showcase strategic need, how alumni themselves can provide strategic value and why they'd want to participate. But as you start to paint the picture of that first year, what do you focus on
Yeah.
to showcase success?
Yeah. You really want to show ROI early and quickly and make sure that you understand what drives success for your program when you stand it up. So I mean, at the basic level, you will look at program metrics, how the alumni population grows, active alums. Then you track engagement and return visitors to your program. But ultimately, you want to drive business outcomes, increased rehire rates, more business with alums, and try to find a way to report on it. We know it's hard. There's no easy way to get to that and then to prove the impact of the program, but think about it early and then set up your metrics. But we want to produce a cliffhanger, right, Jen? So we'll talk more about this in part 2 and 3 of our series. Um, I know it may be again too broad a question, but let's say somebody's really into this and wants to start building it out and doesn't want to wait the completion of the series. What can they do today to kind of learn more about how to engage their alumni audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So engagement is a question we get well into having a program. It's the number one thing any online community wants to know. But what we've done, and we launched this last year, was a how to successfully launch a corporate alumni program guide. And so in that guide, we have a bit of what we talked about, the planning and preparing, but it goes into launching and excelling into that. So if you haven't read anything else, this would be a good place to start kind of thinking through what does that engagement look like. And so there's a QR code here to download that, or just go to our website and download that as well. But that kind of brings us towards the end. I have this is my last question. If there are no other questions in the chat or anything that everyone wants to know right away, but it sounds to us like this is so easy, right? Why haven't companies done it if it seems this
Yeah.
easy, right?
I wish I knew the answer to that, Jen. It beats me. To me, this is the most logical program and project to do. I would say that there's some typical excuses like, oh, we have so much homework for our current employees. We cannot focus on our former employees because we need to get through that first. I would say people can walk and chew gum at the same time. So try to do both at the same time. And yeah, you're bringing up a stat which I think should be very encouraging, which is kind of in this age, and we haven't said AI in this webinar. We have to say the word AI in this webinar. So it's certainly changing our technology. We'll talk more about that in the next part of this mini series. But it's changing the landscape. It's changing the landscape your organization is operating in, and I think the encouraging part is that. The prediction is that relationships will become more important over time, not less important. In an age of AI, where outreach is ubiquitous and everything is personalized and automated and technology drives this, what really matters and where we still have an impact as human beings is in the relationships that we build over time. And alumni programs can be a very important strategic pillar. And their importance will grow over time. It will not diminish. It will be augmented, accelerated, and be made more meaningful through AI. And we'll show how. But it will grow in importance.
Absolutely. Yeah, we asked our alumni leaders in October in New York to rate it, and they
Right.
all 100 people basically all said the same thing. So that it's just a matter of time, really, until more programs exist. And you want to be that market leader if you don't have one in your industry already. So I do want to thank you for taking time to answer some of these questions. I'm hoping people found it really helpful. If there are any questions, now would be the time. We have a couple minutes, and so would love to answer anything that you have or anything we didn't cover. So let us know in the chat. Okay. Well, I don't see anything popping in, but you know where to find us. We'll share the recording and the slides, and you can get back to us with anything you need if you have questions about building a program. And we'll let you know as soon as we can about the next one. So thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Jen. Goodbye, everyone.